Picture this: a man standing at the edge of a quiet street, a small suitcase in hand, his back turned to the house he once called home. The voices of his children echo faintly in the distance, but he doesn't look back. He's made up his mind he's leaving everything behind. His family, his responsibilities, and the life he built are now burdens he no longer wants to carry. Freedom is what he craves, or so he thinks. But life has a strange way of teaching us the lessons we most need to learn. As he steps into a world where no one knows his name, and no one cares about his story, he feels a fleeting sense of liberation. Yet, with every passing day, the cracks in his dream begin to show. The freedom he sought seems emptier than he ever imagined. Meanwhile, the family he abandoned struggles to make sense of his sudden disappearance, forced to pick up the pieces without him. What happens when the consequences of his choices catch up with him in ways he never expected? Can he outrun the pain he caused, or will fate force him to confront the very things he tried to escape? Stay with us as we unravel this emotional journey, a story of regret, redemption, and the harsh lessons life has to offer. Days turn into weeks. Each morning, he wakes up in a small, dimly lit apartment, far from the home where laughter once filled the air. The silence is deafening. The walls feel like they're closing in on him. He told himself it would be different. He imagined his life would be filled with adventure, freedom, and endless possibilities. Instead, it's just emptiness. His new life feels nothing like the one he left behind, and the weight of his decision begins to sink in. He thought he was escaping the responsibilities that had weighed him down for so long, the constant demands, the expectations, the need to always be the strong one. But now, he finds himself questioning everything. He used to tell himself that he was sacrificing his happiness for the sake of others. But now, with no one around to lean on, he starts to realize that he's the one who's truly being left behind. The world moves on without him, indifferent to his pain. He avoids the phone calls, turns a blind eye to the messages. He's tried to block it all out, but it's impossible. Every once in a while, a familiar name flashes on his screen, a reminder of what he walked away from. He knows deep down that he should face the consequences of his actions, but fear keeps him at a distance. Fear of seeing the hurt in their eyes. Fear of admitting that he made a mistake. Meanwhile, back at home, the impact of his departure is felt in every corner. The silence that fills the house is unlike anything they've ever known. The children, once full of energy and curiosity, are now quiet. They've stopped asking about him, but it's clear they're struggling to understand why he left. Their mother doesn't have all the answers, but she tries her best to keep everything together. She spends her days going through the motions, but the sadness in her eyes is unmistakable. She never thought it would come to this. The love they once shared, the family they built, now feels like a distant memory. In the midst of this, a subtle shift occurs. The children, in their own way, begin to show signs of the toll the absence has taken on them. The youngest, once the most carefree, starts to withdraw into themselves. They don't want to play with their friends, don't want to talk about their father. The older one, usually the strong and independent one, becomes more erratic, acting out at school, getting into trouble, anything to get attention. They're both trying to cope, but without the guidance of their father, the road ahead feels uncertain. The mother does her best to hold everything together, but she's stretched thin. There's the constant financial strain, the weight of single-handedly raising 2 children, and the emotional toll of not knowing what happened to the person who once promised to always be there. Her nights are sleepless, filled with thoughts of what went wrong, of how things could have turned out differently, if only he had stayed. She wonders, too, if he'll ever come back, if he'll ever realize what he's done. And then, one evening, the phone rings again. This time, it's not him, but someone else, an old friend, someone he hasn't spoken to in years. The friend's voice on the other end is steady, but there's an underlying sadness to it. Life is waiting for you to come back, but you have to be ready to face what you left behind. The letter hits him like a wave. For the first time since he left, he allows himself to feel something other than regret. There's a pull, a tug in his chest, like a part of him is still tethered to the life he walked away from. He doesn't know if he's ready to face it, but something tells him he can't keep running forever. In the days that follow, he starts to make small changes. He stops ignoring the calls, responds to the messages. But it's not enough. He still hasn't made a decision. Every time he thinks about going back, the fear grips him again. Fear of the hurt he caused. Fear of the consequences of his actions. The shame is overwhelming, but so is the desire for redemption. But even as he tries to move forward, the past is always there, lurking just beneath the surface. The faces of his children, the memory of his wife's tear-streaked face as she begged him to stay, they haunt him. Each night, he lies awake, asking himself if he'll ever be able to make things right. Meanwhile, back home, things are not getting better. The children continue to struggle, each in their own way, trying to cope with the absence of their father. The older one has started skipping school more frequently, hanging out with the wrong crowd. The youngest clings to their mother, seeking comfort in the only person they know won't abandon them. But even she is struggling, her heart heavy with a sorrow she can't escape. She doesn't know if he's coming back, and the uncertainty eats at her. The letter, though, has stirred something in her. A glimmer of hope. Maybe it's naive to think that everything can be fixed, that their family can be whole again. But deep down, she knows that if there's even a chance, she has to take it. But what if he doesn't come back? What if he's too far gone? What if the damage is irreversible? The tension builds with each passing day. The man stands at a crossroads, unable to choose a path. He can keep running, keep hiding from the truth, or he can face the consequences of his actions and try to make amends. But doing so would mean confronting everything he's been avoiding. He knows it won't be easy, and he's not sure if he's ready. The clock is ticking, and both sides feel the weight of the silence between them. What happens next is uncertain. Will he find the courage to return, to repair the damage he's done? Or will he continue to fade into the distance, unable to face the very people who once loved him? The choice is his, but with each passing day, the consequences grow more intense. And as he grapples with his inner turmoil, something else is waiting for him. Something unexpected. Something that will change everything. It's late one evening when he stands in front of the apartment window, staring out into the city lights. His mind still tangled in a web of confusion and regret. The letter has stayed in his pocket for days now, a reminder of the weight he's been carrying, but hasn't yet confronted. Something inside him tells him that it's time to stop avoiding the truth. The phone rings again. This time, he doesn't hesitate. He picks up. "Hello?" he says, his voice unsteady, as if he knows what's coming but can't quite prepare for it. On the other end, a familiar voice, the kind that once gave him comfort, but now only brings pain. It's his old friend, the one who reached out to him months ago. He hears the concern in the voice, the plea for him to come home. "It's time," the friend says. "You can't keep running from this. You need to face what you've done." He swallows hard, fighting back the emotions that threaten to overwhelm him. "I don't know if I can," he admits, his voice breaking. "I've hurt too many people. I've walked away from them. How do I come back from that?" "You take it one step at a time," his friend replies. "It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward." For the first time in a long time, he allows himself to feel something other than guilt. There's a flicker of hope, a realization that maybe, just maybe, he doesn't have to keep running forever. Maybe there's a chance to rebuild, to repair the damage he's done. But that's only the beginning. The real challenge lies in going back. The next morning, he packs his things. It's a small bag, just a few essentials. He doesn't need much. His heart is pounding in his chest as he walks out of the door. The decision has been made. There's no turning back now. He knows the journey ahead will be long and difficult. But it's the only way to find redemption. He gets in his car, starts the engine, and begins the drive back. The road ahead is both familiar and foreign to him. The streets he used to know feel like they belong to someone else. His thoughts race as he drives, replaying all the moments that led him to this point, the arguments, the silence, the quiet resignation. He wonders how much time has passed since he left. How much has changed? When he pulls into the driveway of his old home, his heart stops. It's still there. The house he walked away from. The place that used to be filled with laughter, now eerily quiet. He sits there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. Part of him wants to turn around and drive away. But the other part knows that if he doesn't do this now, he may never have the chance again. He steps out of the car and walks to the door. His hand hovers over the doorknob for a moment before he finally turns it. The door creaks open, and he steps inside. The familiar scent of home hits him first. It's strange, almost nostalgic, but it's also filled with a sense of loss. The silence is deafening. It's as though the house is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And then he hears it, the sound of footsteps. Soft, hesitant, like someone is unsure whether or not they should approach. His heart races as he turns toward the sound. There, standing in the doorway, is the person he never thought he'd see again. The one he left behind. She looks different. Tired. The weight of everything she's been carrying is visible in the way she holds herself. But there's something else there, too, something he can't quite place. Maybe it's hope, or maybe it's just the acceptance of what's been lost. Either way, it's clear that she's been living a life without him, and it hasn't been easy. "You came back," she says, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't know if I could," he replies, his throat tight. "I wasn't sure if you'd even want me to." She takes a step forward, her eyes searching his face for something, maybe an explanation. Maybe just a sign that he's truly back for good. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "But that's not why you came back, is it?" "No," he admits. "I didn't come back for forgiveness. I came back because I couldn't live with the emptiness anymore. I came back because I need to make things right." The words hang in the air between them, heavy with the weight of everything that's unsaid. There's so much more to this, so much more to their story. But for now, this is where they are, standing in the same room after so many months apart, both unsure of what comes next. "I don't know if things can ever go back to the way they were," she says, her voice shaking slightly. "But we have to try. For them." She gestures toward the hallway, where the sounds of their children can be heard, muffled but unmistakable. He follows her down the hall, his heart pounding. The children are sitting on the couch, their eyes wide as they look up at him. The moment feels surreal. They've changed, too, in ways that are hard to put into words. They've grown older, but there's still that innocence in their eyes, still that hope that maybe, just maybe, things will be okay again. The younger one is the first to speak. Are you staying?" He kneels down in front of them, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'm here now. I'm here to try, to make things right." The older one, the one who has been acting out, looks at him with a mixture of skepticism and longing. "You left us," they say, their voice almost accusatory. "How do we know you're not going to leave again?" He swallows hard, the weight of their words sinking in. "I can't promise that I won't make mistakes," he says quietly. but I can promise that I won't give up on us again." The tension in the room is palpable, but slowly, the children begin to soften. It's not an immediate resolution. There's no magic fix for the pain that's been caused. But there's something else, something deeper beginning to form. Trust. It may take time, but it's the first step. As the evening progresses, they sit together, the four of them, in the living room. It feels almost normal, as if time hadn't torn them apart. They don't speak much, there's no need for words. The presence of one another is enough. Slowly, they start to rebuild what was broken. The road ahead won't be easy. There will be challenges, and there will be setbacks. But for the first time in a long time, there's hope. Not the kind of hope that erases the past, but the kind that acknowledges it and chooses to move forward, one step at a time. And as he sits there with his family, he realizes something. The hardest lesson of all wasn't that he had to leave. It was that sometimes, the only way to truly come back is by confronting the mistakes you've made, accepting the consequences, and then choosing to be better. The story doesn't end with perfect reconciliation. But in that moment, he understands that it's not about fixing everything at once. It's about showing up. It's about trying. And sometimes, that's enough.